Good afternoon. This is Gloria Nelson with the TUG organization, and we welcome you to this afternoon's webinar, Implementing Magento, a best-in-class e-commerce platform with SX.e and CloudSuite. Before we get started, we'd like to give you a quick plug for TUG. We know that you probably have saved the dates on your calendar, but please register and go online and make your hotel reservations as well if you're not opting into the all-inclusive package, because the property is very tight and we want to make sure that we have all of our attendees under the roof where you can maximize the experience, your networking opportunities, and not have to stress about jumping onto a shuttle or finding alternate transportation. So we are going to be at the Hilton Anatole, which is right in the urban Dallas area. And I am very happy to share that our Monday keynote speaker is going to be Nick Tassler. And Nick is an internationally acclaimed thought leader, organizational psychologist, and #1 best-selling author of 4, count them 4, counterintuitive books on the art and science of making decisions and leading change. And on the final keynote on Tuesday, March 10th, we will be hearing from Infor's new CEO, Kevin Samuelson, on the changes coming from Infor, and from Kelly Squazzaro, Infor's Director of Industry and Solution Strategy, on changes and distributions in the distribution industry. So make sure that you hop on after the webinar and go over to TUG website and register. You'll find all the links that you need to access on our home landing page. And what I would like to do at this time is introduce Ken Mostello, who is the president of Expertek. And Ken's going to pull up and share his screen with all of us.
Okay, thank you, Gloria. Hopefully everyone can see that. Okay, well, good afternoon to all of you, and thanks for joining us today. And thank you, Gloria, for the introduction. So today, what we're going to do is spend the next hour just talking about what Expertek and our partner Trellis have been up to bring a what we think is the best-in-class e-commerce solution to the Infor, CloudSuite, and SX.e community. So let me begin just by making a couple of introductions. As Gloria said, I'm Ken Mostello. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Expertek Systems. I'll tell you a little bit more about us in a minute. And with me also as a co-presenter, I have John Simerman, who's the Chief Technology Officer and a co-founder of Trellis. Now, Trellis, I will also tell you a little bit more about as we get further along. They are one of the Northeast premier Magento agencies and partners. So that's the skill and the expertise they bring to our world. And with me also on this, I didn't put on the slide, is Isaiah Bollinger. Isaiah is the CEO and also a co-founder of Trellis, and he is not going to be presenting today, but might choose to chime in at some point in this presentation. So let me just begin with a couple of introductions on who we are. So I'll start with Expertek. That's the organization I'm part of. Our business, very simple, has been delivering IT solutions for distributors, and we have been doing that since the early 1990s. We have been partnered with the SX.e CloudSuite family of products since the late 90s, actually 97. And we have been an Infor partner from the inception of Infor when they acquired the SX.e product line back in the Next Trend days. Now, a large part of our business has always been focused on integrating solutions. And we have a long history of that. We actually developed we actually developed a mobile application for Infor back in 2012. We've actually been doing mobility within the Infor family going back now really to the mid 2000s, I think 2005 specifically. And we have been a solution partner of Infor officially since 2014. Now, I mentioned integrations. Over the past couple of years, we've done integrations to some of the major e-marketing marketplaces that are out there. Amazon and eBay, and we did that via Channel Advisor and finished that last year. And so we have clients now who are actively taking orders through Amazon and doing it in a pretty much lights out fashion, since everything gets processed automatically and delivered directly to the warehouse for processing. And our Magento integration, we completed the first round of that last year, and we are continuing and now working on our second round of integration into the Magento e-commerce world. So that's a little bit of history of Expertek. We are an Infor channel partner, I should mention as well, so we do provide the full gamut of services on the SX.e and CloudSuite product line. And then we have Trellis. So Trellis is our partner in this initiative. Trellis is a younger company than we are, certainly. They've been around since 2012. They are a 60+ developer company, so they are rather substantial. 350 accounts that they work with. They're a full service e-commerce and e-marketing business. So, and when I say that, it really means they can provide the full gamut of both technical, marketing know-how, and design assistance for the products that they represent. And Magento is their flagship product. They are one of only a couple of what I would call industry-leading Magento partners in our part of the world, which is New England, but they service clients today nationally, and we're working with them on clients on the West Coast and Midwest, as well as back where we are in the Northeast. So why are we here together today? We put this partnership together now. It's been close probably about a year plus now, and we kind of both came together on this because we were both hearing from Infor SX.e and CSD clients that they were interested in Magento. They felt they needed someone like us to build that integration, and we felt that we were also getting the same requests, but we didn't have certainly the product knowledge on the e-commerce side that they bring to the table. So between our two organizations, we have what I would say is the full complement of expertise and services that our clientele need to be able to bring an e-commerce product into their portfolio and have it successfully integrated into the SX.e product or CloudSuite product that they're using. We think that this is probably one of the most important things that we do today. And I say that because I think having a successful e-commerce presence is without a doubt an essential for anyone in the distribution space today. The days of doing sales by strictly incoming order calls and counter sales, I think is largely dissipating, and what we are seeing more and more is everyone needs to have an answer for that, and that answer for e-commerce really is both within their own e-commerce presence like Magento provides, as well as a presence within the e-marketplaces like the Amazons and eBays of the world. So our objective is really to provide the ability for distributors who run the Infor products to be able to successfully play in that space, and that's why we're here. So as the tagline there says, our goal is to marry the best distribution ERP, which we think we have with Infor, with the best e-commerce solutions, and also be able to provide those for a variety of budgets, from small to substantial budgets that our clientele have out there. So let me just take a minute and explain Magento. John's going to do that in much greater depth, but I think it's important that you understand why did we pick Magento really as the product. And the reason is very simple. Magento has an overwhelming presence within the e-commerce market space. I mean, they are, just like Infor is a market leader within distribution ERP, Magento clearly has established that foothold within the e-commerce world, and that applies both within the B2B and the B2C space as well. And by that, what do I mean? Well, there's over 275,000 websites today processing over 100 billion in sales with Magento. So that's considerable. And what that brings with it is what I like to consider to be an unparalleled ecosystem. You have 6,000 product extensions available as a Magento user, and there are over 200,000 developers on the product worldwide. So that is an enormous talent pool out there and resource pool that no one else really can match. Not to mention the fact that the product itself is a terrific product, very flexible and very easy to build on and grow. And what I like in particular, and John may choose to talk a little more about it, is the product also is available from a community edition that is essentially a no-cost product right up to their enterprise version, which you do pay for, and offers more functionality. So there's a lot there within the Magento product. Now,
I just want to chime in real quick. That 100 billion number is from 2018. So the 2019, some people are estimating that's like already at like 150 billion. So it's scaling pretty fast.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to take issue with the scale of Magento. And again, I will say, I think it's important these days that the product have scale, because e-commerce today is moving into the forefront of what distributors have to do. It's not one of these kind of ancillary applications. It becomes a critical component in your business. So that's how we view that strategically. Now, I'm going to shift for a moment before I hand the keys over to John, just to talk a little bit about our integration architecture. As I said, we are, as a firm, this is really a specialty that we focus on, is integration. And Infor, to their credit, has built an awesome set of integration tools into their ERP product. For those of you that are on version 11 today, the web version, you know that it's extensible, which allows us to build Magento components right into SX.e and have them easily upgraded, and they look and feel like they're part of the standard product. So when you see on this slide here that we have a context application, that's really what that is. These are extensions that we have built that allow us to add and build out Magento right within SX.e and do it like it's just part of the product. And then beyond that, we also have an integration service layer. And the integration service layer is really kind of our traffic cop between the Infor integration components, the Ion APIs and the Ion bods. And it's that integration level that in turn talks to the Magento side. And we do this for a reason, because the Infor APIs are very granular, they're very detailed, but they don't really provide the kind of the face that Magento needs to see, or for that matter, any e-commerce product is going to need to see to process exactly what needs to get done. So we take the Magento requests, translate them into the appropriate bod and API calls, and vice versa. Now, and then I will also just mention, on the Magento side, there's also a set of extensions there. Trellis has built those. That's part of this, and the Trellis Magento extensions really provide the gateway back to our integration services to interact and work with SX.e and CloudSuite. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide. We are supporting older versions of the SX.e product, going back as early as 6.1 through version 10. This would be for, and really for that, the major difference is that the APIs are older. They're not quite as complete as they are in version 11. And one of the components that we've added into the mix is this thing called a fetchware emulator, which really replaces one of the key components that Infor added into the later set of integration tools that came along. That Petra component is invaluable when it comes to doing everything that we need to do here. Okay. And I don't want to take up a lot of time on this, but basically some of the key functionality we've incorporated into this, and I think this is an important point. One of the things that we have done, we believe that the integration layer is a very important component in this, and it's important because where I think a lot of e-commerce projects start to get into trouble is that today, if you're taking an order over the phone, chances are there's a customer service person somewhere in the loop with in taking the order that processes a lot of information and makes decisions that we don't think a lot about. But that decision-making process, once you move to an e-commerce platform, suddenly software has to start to apply rules and make important decisions. So we like to say that you really have to have a layer of expertise or intelligence between what goes on the web and the ERP. And to that end, we've built a templating and rules processing engine that acts as a go-between to make key decisions when an order comes through, and maybe that order is not perfect in every way that we would like it to be. That could be because of inventory availability, fulfillment questions, substitutions. There's any number of those. Another thing that we also have incorporated is caching. And we've really looked to optimize the use of API calls, and that we did for a number of reasons, and not the least of which is performance, obviously. If you didn't do that, it's conceivable you'd be making multiple calls that do exactly the same thing as part of someone's session when they're in e-commerce. So we wanted to change that, and we did, and we got a significant improvement both in performance. And the other nice thing is you reduce the load on the API call side, which in some cases can actually have cost impact as well if you're on CloudSuite. Okay, so that is a little bit of what we've done on the functional side. One thing I like to share is, if you're looking to take on an e-commerce integration, whether it's with us or anyone, these are kind of the areas here that typically start to run into issues when you start to go down through the process and peel it back and see what you have to do. Product substitutions, kitting, if you do build on demand kits, if you have order as needed products and don't necessarily have them available. Tendering introduces some questions, especially if you're doing credit card processing up front. We've seen fulfillment become an issue where potentially I might not have a product in warehouse A, but I have it in warehouse B. Do I reposition that order to come out of another warehouse? That's something our templating and expert engine can handle. Back ordering, if I have to potentially fulfill an order through multiple deliveries for an incoming order, that becomes a concern, and I have to have rules for that. Charges for shipping and taxation also are part of that whole process, and we do today have rules in place to handle all those things. So that is all something that we see and you need to be prepared to deal with. Okay. So I've talked about our templating. I'm not going to spend any more time on that. And I've talked about caching, and I think we can move beyond that. So I'm going to start just to finish up here. Again, I think between Expertek and Trellis, we have a great team here to deliver this product to you. For those of you who would like to reach out, that's my email, that's my phone number. Feel free to contact us if you'd like to offline. And at this point, I guess I'm going to turn to Gloria and ask you to turn this over to John, and we can actually get into a demo and presentation on the Magento side.
Very good. Thanks, Ken. I'll wait till the presenter has been switched.
John, I have made you presenter. There should be a little box. There you go.
Yes. We're all set. Okay, well, thanks for that, Ken. I think that was a great overview as to what Expertek has been doing, as well as what our partnership has been working on to date. So I'll just start off with a quick recap of who we are as a company. So Trellis, we're an e-commerce agency based out of Boston since 2012, as Ken mentioned. We have a substantial partnership with Magento. We have some clients you may have heard of. Vermont Teddy Bear, Roche Technologies, Partners Healthcare, who manages MGH, Massachusetts General Hospital, as well as many other hospitals. And you know, as you can see, we're a Magento professional partner, which is kind of their middle tier. So we're you know, a good mid-size agency with a good amount of builds under our belts. We've done dozens of Magento 2 builds at this point on both the open source version as well as the commerce or the paid version. And that's, you know, brings up a good point. Who is this integration built for? So we're building this integration to work with all versions of Magento. So if you use the paid or non-paid version, you will be able to use our integration. Some of the integration features will only be available on the enterprise version, but the vast majority of the features will be available for all versions. So what you see here is what essentially comes out of the box on Magento 2. So it comes with this default Luma theme, which is a basic theme, but you get sort of the general impressions of what's possible in that, as you can see, this is a responsive theme. So as you, you know, as you have a desktop size viewport, you have the 3-column layout here of the products, but as you shrink down the viewport, eventually it'll collapse onto a 2-column version. And as you keep shrinking, you'll see it, you get the hamburger sort of mobile and tablet version menu here with a shrunken down 2-column version. Eventually it just goes down to 1 column. So so as you can see, it's kind of set up already to work on almost any device. So this is what you would normally see on what Magento would call a category page, or some other systems would call a product listing page. So this is a, you know, a view of a variety of products that all share the same type, which in that case was the jerseys. And so we have here set up some sample products from different categories. We've got components for a bike here. And what you're looking at here are products that exist both in Magento and as well SX. So we've added in, you know, the images and other aspects of the products.
Hey, John, if I could just interrupt for a second, just
Sure.
a couple of things I'd like to just point out here. First of all, the website you're looking at, I mean, I actually did most of this layout, which just demonstrates how easy it is to do this in Magento, because I have no expertise in this whatsoever. Second thing I would point out is when you see pricing, which you're seeing right here in front of you now, that's all coming back from SX.e.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to mention there. The pricing is fully dynamic there. So whenever the pricing is updated in SX, it's going to immediately reflect on the front end. It's real time. So that includes also the product page. So if the price had suddenly changed in between those 2 clicks, by the time you arrived on this page, the pricing will have already updated. So fully dynamic there, as well as the amount of product that's in stock. This is coming straight from the SX warehouse information. And this is also, the pricing is controllable by customer. So if we were to log in here as a user that Ken had set up in SX, you're actually going to see, so this was $5,000. It's now, the price has gone to $4,500. So that's the price that's set for this particular customer. And you'll see that information. So you see here, we're looking at a product listing page, and you see this as low as price here. So what that's signifying is that there's some price breaks set up for this particular product, but only for this customer. So since we're logged in as Ken is seeing his you know, custom tailored price just for him. And he's also seeing discounts based on quantity. So if he orders 10 of these items, the unit price goes from 131 down to 122. And then if he goes up to 25 or more, he's going to get an even better, more aggressive price because he's ordering in quantity. So if you see, if we log out here from Ken's account, and then we go back to the same page, you'll see the price is now restored to the general price that all users would normally see. So this is just one of the features that we've built so far, but we are also building in full customer integration. So customers that create accounts in Magento will also have an account in SX. Orders that they place will appear in SX. Shipping and fulfillment integration. So when orders ship out, the tracking information will come back into Magento. We're also doing tax and total integration, as well as many other features. And kind of the mantra that we're operating under for this integration is that we want it to be fully modular, so that if customers need certain features and not others, they have the ability to toggle those individual features on and off. And the way that you toggle features on and off in Magento is via the Magento admin, which you can see is pretty nicely built. So Magento 1 admin looked a lot more basic, but Magento 2's admin is a lot more user-friendly with these flyout menus. Oops, let's see. Actually, sorry about that. Oh, dang.
Is there a little problem there?
Yeah.
I have it in
There we go.
LastPass.
No, I got it. I got it. We're all set. Sorry. Session expired. Okay, so so when you go into the Magento admin, there's a configuration section, and we are building a configuration section just for the SX integration, as you can see. So you can see that these are some of the various features that we've worked on, such as price integration, inventory, customer creation and updating, and a bunch of other toggleable features. So we've made this as modular as turn this flag on or off, and that particular piece of the integration is turned on or off. So so that's the general overview. I would say that we're building this to be functional on as many different themes as possible, so that when a user installs a different theme, makes the site look completely different, but the SX integration will work all the same. So yeah, so that's the general overview. So I guess at this point, we could turn it over into a Q&A phase where we can.
I just want to chime in one real quick, because being at this is Isaiah, being at the conference last year, I know there was a couple other people or other companies that had some sort of integration to Magento, and what I noticed is that they were simply just a Magento extension. They didn't have really a lot of the power behind this, which is Expertek's middleware, configuration that gives us a ton of flexibility. So if, like, John, for instance, all you were doing is just the Magento extension going directly to Infor, like, this wouldn't be even close to as powerful as what it is
Right.
today.
There's definitely, a sense here where we have experts from both sides building the bridge, rather than, one side of the bridge, we have tons of experience, and then we know nothing about the land that lives on the other side of the bridge. So, we're leveraging over a decade of Magento experience from our team. We have many engineers that have been working as far back as 2009 on Magento, and then we're leveraging, multiple decades of experience on the Expertek side to build an integration that is holistic. It knows the power and flexibility of both platforms, and we know how to build things cleanly and efficiently and as bug-free as possible. So.
And again, I'll emphasize what you're seeing here is the out-of-the-box theme that comes with Magento. There's been no creative put into this website at all at this point.
With that being said, we are working on that.
You are working
on the demo.
that, but I think more to the point, I say it because I just want everyone to understand what you can get without, before you actually invest time, money into, a lot of creative work. Right out of the box, you can get quite a functional and pleasing looking website just based on the standard theme that is part of Magento.
Yep.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, so basically, as soon as you install demo data on your server and you install the Magento extension that Trellis has built, from that point, which will be about 2 hours into a project, you'll have a fully functional integration with a basic looking website, and it only improves from there.
Okay. Anything else, John and Isaiah?
I mean, there's a lot that I could say, but I think at this point I'd like to open it up for questions, and then I think
Okay.
sometimes those questions might require like a separate meeting depending on how in-depth they are. So
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you guys have any inquiries, so we're Trellis.co. So if you just go to that website and you click the little speech bubble, that would be a chat with us that we can, answer any questions that you may have about this integration or any other questions that you have that are
yeah, we can easily get back to you and set up
related.
meetings
Hmm.
for longer in-depth conversations.
Indeed.
Okay. Well, Gloria, maybe we could open this up for a few questions.
We do have a bunch of questions that are starting to populate. The first
Okay.
question is sort of a three-part. It says, how does product management occur for the products in Magento? How is it integrated with SX.e being the master of some of the information, but missing pictures and other attributes, including robust product categories?
That is a great question, and I can answer that pretty thoroughly. So the way that we're setting up the integration is that, so if you go to catalog products in the admin, this will give you the product listing. So when we connect SX to Magento, what will happen is SX will look in Magento and see what products already exist. And any products that are web enabled in SX, we'll drop those into Magento as stub products. So basically, some basic information from SX will come in, like the SKU, the name, and a few other pieces of data will trickle into Magento that way. And then from there, there's a few different approaches. One approach is that you could go into the Magento admin and edit each product that way. So you can there's a data entry section here that you can go in and just edit the product data, upload images. So there's an images tab here where we can upload the images, etc. Another approach you can take is you can upload CSVs. So essentially, you would populate a CSV table with some data that Magento requires for those products, and you can upload images that way too. So essentially, you would put a link to a URL where the product image lives. Maybe you uploaded it to Dropbox or some other Google Drive or some other publicly accessible URL. You can upload images through those URLs into Magento that way.
I think just to kind of reiterate John's point, what we are doing is passing a stub product from SX over to Magento. It is disabled when it comes over. As far as the category placement, that stub product, by the way, includes the SKU. It includes the descriptive information in SX.e, not much more. Okay. And the reason is because the heavy lifting you need to do in Magento is really dropping it into the appropriate categories, assigning images, and as the questionnaire, the person asking the questions pointed out, a lot of those are really limited to non-existent right now in SX.e. So what we are providing really is the basic product with the basic descriptive information, with the expectation that someone right now is going to go and start to categorize that on the Magento side in the tool, using the tools that John just presented.
I think this also opens up a bigger strategic problem that distributors are facing and are kind of behind the mark in terms of like, we work with manufacturers, distributors, and retailers, and distributors, I would say, are kind of a little behind in terms of their sophistication in terms of like e-commerce product data, because they haven't been forced to adapt as fast as retailers, and I guess it depends on the kind of manufacturer that we're talking about here. So I think that there's also like a strategic decision that distributors need to make as to what will be their master product data system in terms of housing like all of their kind of like, I guess you would call like rich product data, or I think Amazon has a term for it. And you could definitely do that in Magento, where Magento will essentially be like your PIM or your product information management system. And I think for a lot of distributors, that's actually a good strategy. And then, Infor is more of like the sellable or like the operational product data, like pricing and inventory and things like that. And then, depending on the scale and, craziness that you're trying to get to, then you may want to look into like an additional product information management system like Salsify or InRiver. There's a bunch of them out there. And then you have to integrate that to Magento, which we've actually done before. So It's not an easy thing to answer, because really I think it starts with the strategy of how you plan to scale that out before you
Yeah.
really can answer that.
Yeah, so definitely the step one there is, Infor sending over the the information over to Magento to create the stub product. And then once you have the stub product in the system, there's a few different strategies you can go with. But just managing it directly in Magento is one of those strategies that works well.
Okay. Shall we move on? Next question.
The next question is, are you using SX.e to figure out core charges and determine taxes on taxable items and to figure tax exclusions?
That's a good question. So there's actually a bunch of different ways that you could go about this. So Magento, first of all, can do tax calculation. Magento has its own built-in tax table system that you can edit. So that's one way you can just maintain it. The taxing by region and such. There's tax tables in Magento you could use. Also, typically, we recommend that people using Magento use something like, there's Avalara's AvaTax, TaxJar, Vertex, a couple of these other third-party solutions where the tax calculations are done via API call to one of those partners. Also, SX can do its own tax calculations, and also SX tax on some fees based on certain conditions, et cetera. So sort of the solution that we're going to be going with for a number of our customers is for SX to be doing those calculations. So basically, once we're in checkout, we're getting to the final stages where the shipping method has been chosen, et cetera. At that point, then we send over an API call to SX. SX does the additional tack on fees as well as the tax calculation, sends that information back to Magento, and then we charge the customer accordingly. So that's the solution we're going with for a number of our customers, but there are other ways that it can be done, and we're going to provide options for doing it those ways.
And I would just add to that, first of all, that as a general rule, when we built integration in here, is that we look to have SX.e, the ERP, really be the system of record on as many of those types of things as reasonably possible. Taxing certainly being one of them. I think if it only makes sense that especially knowing that for distributors there are situations where products can be taxed in some cases, in other cases not, as you well know. The other thing I would also add to that is I think part of that question was about cores. We don't have anything today built in here specifically for cores. That may be something we look at down the road, but today there is nothing imminent specifically on cores. Okay. Shall we move on?
The next question is, has the integration been made compliant with CCPA privacy features?
So the module is basically still under development. It's we're nearing a beta phase with it, where the phase 1 features will be become close to feature complete. Once we're getting close to that stage, security review and compliance will be something that we work on. But at this particular phase of the project, we're not quite at that level, and because certain things are changing so fast that to get a security review now would become irrelevant a month later when more features are available and we have to have another security review done. So at the point at which we're nearing feature complete on phase 1, that would be the point in time where we would have the security review done. But we do have plans to make sure we're security compliant.
And I believe the next one is more of a statement than it is a question. It says, looks good. We have all custom APIs from A+ into Magento 2.3.
Okay.
Wanted to share that.
Great.
Next comment is, it says, you mentioned orders from Magento show up in SX. Do orders in SX.e show up in Magento?
That is actually one of the things that we are currently building out is a customer self-service part. It's a good question. Today, the answer is, right now, no. But we are building that out. We will have a customer self-service capability that's roughly equivalent to what is currently in storefront. that's on the not only on the drawing board, it's actually being developed for one client right now that needs to have that.
Yep, definitely plan. So the way we specifically plan to implement that is that the non-web orders will be displayed separately. So essentially, there will be one section where Magento orders are presented, and then there will be another section that's toggleable. So this is a integration that won't be the case for every client, but if this feature is enabled, then a second section will appear that will display your non-web orders, basically the orders that are coming from SX that don't exist in Magento. And like Ken was saying, customers that are on terms, let's say they have orders that have not yet been paid, they'll have a way through the web portal to pay for those orders with credit card or whatever other payment methods that have been enabled in Magento.
And next question, are you building a CRM integration for marketing automation?
No, not currently.
So yeah, basically in Magento, there's one of the things that Ken mentioned about Magento that's a big draw is that it has such a large community. It has such a large community of modules that have already been built for various purposes. And so there are modules already available that perform HubSpot, MailChimp, and other similar, yes. So many other sort of marketing automation platforms that handle those features much better than Magento ever could. So what we would recommend is if somebody's looking to move from, let's say, Storefront over to Magento, that they have a look at these platforms and decide which one that they'd want to integrate with, and that would handle that aspect of the project.
Yeah. Thank you, John. That's a much better answer.
And the next
question.
question.
Yeah, Magento is also owned by Adobe. So Adobe has Marketo. They just bought Marketo, which is one of the leading more enterprise marketing automation platforms.
Okay. The next question is there a punch-out integration that goes along with this?
I can answer that. No, not right now, but we do have a companion product, a mobile product called Field Office, which is really built specifically for a field salesperson, and that product would do everything you would reasonably need to do for ordering purposes in the field.
Okay. Any challenges with accepting credit cards with Send POS integration within SX.e?
Actually, one of the nice things is that SendPOS actually has a plugin for Magento. So there are, and I will qualify that by saying there are a lot of details in how you process credit card in Magento vis-a-vis SX.e, and how that tendering is communicated and synchronized with the system. We've dealt with a number of scenarios with that, and we have handled that. And yes, SendPOS, you could certainly, as I said, one option if you want is that you could use the SendPOS plugin up front to do credit card processing in Magento if you'd like to. I don't know, John, if you have anything you want to add on that.
Well, I would just say that that's one of the aspects of the integration that we're actually working heavily on right now is, authorize and then capture. Then how do you capture and reauthorize in the case of back orders correctly? So there's a lot of considerations there based on how you want to process credit cards and what type of back ordering or pre-ordering that you'd want to have be possible on your storefront. So that's actually, a major area of work right now.
Okay, next question. What kind of monitoring is available if API connections are lost?
Good question.
You want me to answer that?
Well, that's probably one for our CTO who isn't here in the room.
I know Andrew has a solution for that. I forget the name of what he uses, but it's, we use internally Datadog and some open source stuff for certain monitoring things, but I know Andrew has something specific that he uses.
He does. We do it today for other clients. And by the way, we're using the APIs for a lot of things that have nothing to do with Magento, but yes, we do have tools today that can ping the APIs and alert someone if there is a non-response situation going We do that routinely, really, with just as part of our SX.e practice today. We have tools in place that monitor the systems to make sure they're up and running and alert our support personnel if for some reason a system is down or not responding.
Yeah, just from a professional services standpoint, anytime we're like checkout or some sort of critical transactional element is not working, that's like a tier 1 issue for us, and we're usually able to remedy that very quickly. So it's not something that's been a major issue for us.
Next question, is credit card
on Slack.
Whoops, I'm sorry, gentlemen.
Go ahead, Gloria.
Is credit card integration available now, or if not, are there plans for that integration?
Yeah, it's actually, we have a client we're taking live middle to late February, and credit card is part of what they will have. And again, I think one of the things, again, just to point out is there's credit card, and then there is, details regarding credit card. There's a number of ways to process it, to do credit card processing, but we will be taking a client live next month with credit card and Magento.
Wonderful. Do you integrate with any PIMs to handle product information / detail?
Yes, we absolutely do. So we work with a company called Salsify. So we've actually built the integration between Magento and Salsify jointly with them. And we're actually working on evolving that plugin to, they've updated their API and added some new features. So we're consistently working with them to use the latest and greatest from their API, but essentially the work pattern there would be for someone to enter products first in SX. That would come into Magento as a stub product. And then from within Salsify, you could do things like managing the images and other product attributes that are more e-commerce and public facing. And we would augment that data in Magento with the data that's coming in from Salsify. So you could actually use both of those integrations in tandem, and it would work really well.
I know also Akinio has an integration to Magento. I think Sales Layer does as well, though we've had trouble with their integration, but there's definitely like a handful of solutions that have an integration with Magento.
Hey.
Typically for every major solution, there is a integration built by someone else. It's just a matter of how good it is, pretty much.
Again, that's the power of the Magento ecosystem out there. You've got hundreds of thousands of developers worldwide and 6,000 plugins in the catalog.
Okay, next question. What's the ETA for version 1?
I'll answer that. We are taking our first client live, as I mentioned earlier, in late February. Don't mind saying we absolutely wanted a client live on this before TUG, so that is happening. We have a very large client that will be going live soon after TUG in late April is the time frame right now, and that one is like 15 warehouses, big, huge company. There are so that's also in the plans. So that really, that will, you might as well say that phase 1, the phase 1 deliverable is really February. We will be delivering something close to phase 2 with that second live implementation, which will be taking place a couple of months right after TUG.
And does it support PayPal as a method of payment?
Well, yeah, Magento has PayPal built in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yep, if we go to sales, payment methods. And yep, PayPal, Braintree, Amazon Pay, and a few others, authorized.net.
Yeah, and the Enterprise Edition has more. This is just the open source. And then most major payment gateways will have an extension that you install and should work, but depending on that payment gateway, their extension may not be very good.
Is the inventory update in real time?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yep. So basically, as you're going to the page, it's pulling that inventory information in real time. So this is really important. Obviously, if you have multi-channel sales or sales happening in your back office at the same time you're selling stuff on your storefront, you obviously don't want to allow people to overorder, and now you are forced to underdeliver. So by necessity, it's real time.
Mm-hmm.
And typically, how long does it take to integrate and go live with a Magento integration?
Okay, let me just say that one can be very fast or it can be extended.
And that specifically, she wrote on another line for CloudSuite distribution, by the way, excuse me.
Yeah, CloudSuite's probably does not present. Let me just say, just something just to be aware of. We use CloudSuite as kind of the baseline development platform for anything we do, as far as integration development. And the reason, there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, it's obviously now the flagship lead product for Infor in the distribution world. But secondly, also, we've made, obviously one of the things we really wanted to get away from was modifications to the software. We're really looking to work within the tool set that is presented, that's extensible, that's upgradable, that doesn't present problems. So CloudSuite is our focus, and that's what we work to. And I think there was more to the question. Would you just read that question again, Gloria, for me?
Typically, how long does it take to integrate and go live?
Thank you. Sorry about that, folks.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think more importantly, it's also like how the full process of implementing Magento is going to take usually more than the time to do the integration itself.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. I mean, now, to stand up a site like what we showed you today, Luma is fast. I mean, because it really is, there's no, but if you want to start to incorporate creative into it, which really you do because it's the face of your company, there's going to be time for that, time to adopt a theme. The integration really shouldn't be, we don't, our expectation is, if you're using the out-of-the-box integration, we should be talking a matter of days to get that stood up and working.
And
yeah,
also,
if we have to customize it, then it can take longer. So.
And there's another tag onto this question on another line. How long was beta testing for this customer going live before TUG?
How long was beta testing? They're playing with it now. They are in that process, so they're not done beta testing, obviously, or they'd be live. But they are they're just in the process now. Their site, they have their Magento site, and we are just in the process right now of getting integration going for them. So they will be testing integration very shortly. So our expectation is they're going to be doing about a month of integration testing before they turn the site officially live.
Yeah, but in terms of implementing Magento, I mean, we've seen projects that take as little as 2-3 months to projects that take years. I mean, it all depends on the sophistication of because we rely a lot on the client for things. So a lot of times that's the blocker. There's just so many things that go into the timeline and the costs, which we kind of help figure out more in depth in our discovery, kind of like architecture phase. And but typically, like, you should be able to get up and running somewhere between the like 4 to 9 month range, as long as things are moving relatively smoothly.
Yep. A lot has to do with any extra features that are desired, or maybe there's something about the integration that needs a slight tweak based on how you use SX, or maybe you have an SX mod that you like supported. Those are the things that can take extra time if you're just looking for the out of the box base features that we're offering in the integration. Integration time shouldn't take very long at all.
Yeah, my recommendation is always to start with as little as you need, and then you can always, like our most successful customers, they're launching new features every week basically, so we're deploying new features pretty much every week to their site.
Mm-hmm. So Gloria, maybe we have time for one more.
That's what I was just going to say, and
Okay.
I wanted to let people know also that the post webinar report that we populate will also attach questions to your specific online registration. So if you have any other pressing questions, please feel free to type them into the question bank before we close out the webinar, and Ken and John and Isaiah will circle back to you and get you an answer to those pressing questions. So the final question is, with PayPal, how does this appear in SX.e under the tender screen, and how do you refund a PayPal transaction?
Yep, that's a good question. So basically the way that Andrew and I are working on this is that any order that's captured from within Magento in SX, it will be denoted as a Magento capture. And basically, no matter what payment gateway was used, there will be certain API calls that Andrew will be able to make to Magento's API to either capture payment for a payment that was authorized but not yet captured, or also to reverse an order, let's say it needs to be refunded. There will be API calls that can be made there. So to SX, it won't care so much what the payment gateway was in Magento. It just needs to know that the order was is being tendered from an external source, and then the API calls that Andrew can make will resolve the outstanding capture that needs to be made or the refund as needed. It will be all resolved in the same way, no matter what the payment gateway was, due to the API calls that Magento exposes for this purpose.
And you know, and that's a question too. If the person asking wants to know more, we can always have Andrew, who is our technical counterpart to John, certainly answer that in more depth. But yeah, we've kind of gone through the whole workflow process of credit card, really for how this integration needs to play. And yes, you can do credit card tendering on the Magento side, and then have it submit that to SX as a tendered order. That is something we've done, and Andrew would probably know more about how some of the refunding or credit process would work if that has to happen.
And Ken, would you like to pop up your final screen that has your contact information on it again?
I can do that. Just bear with me 1 minute.
Okay, and I'm going to give you the controls of the screen.
Okay, so there we go. So that is my contact information. If somebody wants to reach out, I'm happy to answer questions, and I can have other resources also, you know, do a deeper dive with you on some of the technical stuff if you need to do so. Okay.
Wonderful job, everyone. And we'd like to thank you for attending today. Again, this will be available on our TUG website, along with all of our bounty of archived information from webinars past. Thank you so much for joining us today. And gentlemen, as they say in Hollywood, that's a wrap.
Thank you, Gloria. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Yes. Bye now.
Take care.